Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Carmina, and it's again time for another reading session, another lecture of a story, a classical fairy tale that maybe will give us some food for thought. And we'll find some references, cross references, meta, symbolism. We can connect it to astrology, to card reading, or maybe to even to human design. So for today I chose The Emperor's New Clothes, a classical story by Hans Christian Andersen, and I think it's quite relevant for the times that we are living in because we are told how to see things and that we should see things a certain way, whether or not our common sense disagrees with it. And then even if we have enough common sense, then because of the peer pressure we go along with the lie. So let's read the story and see what it has to offer to us. Many years ago there was an emperor who was so very fond of new clothes that he spent all his money on them. He did not trouble about his soldiers. He did not care to go to the theater. He only went out when he had the chance to show off his new clothes. He had a different suit for each hour of the day. Most kings could be found sitting in council. It was said of the emperor, he was sitting in his wardrobe. One day, two fellows calling themselves weavers came to town. They said that they knew how to weave cloth of the most beautiful colors and patterns. The clothes made from this wonderful cloth would be invisible to everyone who was unfit for the job he held or who was very simple in character. These must indeed be splendid clothes, thought the emperor. If I had such a suit, I might at once find out what men in my kingdom are unfit for their job. I would be able to tell the wise men from the foolish. This stuff must be woven for me immediately. He gave large sums of money to both the weavers in order that they might begin their work at once. So the two pretend weavers set up two looms. They worked very busily, though in reality they did nothing at all. They asked for the finest silk and the purest gold thread. They put both into their own knapsacks. Then they pretended to work at the empty looms until late at night. I should like to know how the weavers are getting on with my cloth, said the emperor to himself one day. When he remembered that a simpleton or one unfit for his job would be unable to see the cloth, he began to worry. To be sure, he thought he was safe. However, he would prefer sending somebody else to bring him news about the weavers and their work. All the people in the kingdom had heard of the wonderful cloth. All were eager to learn how wise or how foolish their neighbors might be. I will send my faithful old wise man to the weavers, said the emperor at last. He will be best able to see how the cloth looks. He is a man of sense. No one can be better for his job than he is. So the faithful old wise man went into the hall where the thieves were working with all their might at their empty looms. What can be the meaning of this? Thought the old man, opening his eyes very wide. I cannot find the least bit of thread on the looms. However, he did not say his thoughts aloud. The thieves asked him very kindly to be so good as to come nearer their looms. Then they asked him whether the cloth pleased him. They asked whether the colors were not very beautiful. All the time they were pointing to the empty frames. The poor old wise man looked and looked. He could not see anything on the looms for a very good reason. There was nothing there. What? Thought he again. Is it possible that I am a fool? I have never thought so myself. Now, if I am so, can it be that I am unfit for my job? No, the emperor must not know that either. I will never tell that I could not see the stuff. Well, sir, said one of the weavers, still pretending to work. "You do not say whether the cloth pleases you." "Oh, it's excellent," replied the old wise man, looking at the loom through his spectacles. "This pattern and the colors. Yes, I will tell the emperor without delay how very beautiful I think them." "We shall be much obliged to you," said the thieves. Then they named the many colors and described the pattern of the pretended stuff. The old wise man listened with care to their words, so he might repeat them to the emperor. The thieves asked for more silk and gold, saying that it was necessary to complete what they had begun. Once again they put all that was given them into their knapsacks. They went on working with as much effort as before at their empty looms. The emperor soon sent another man from his court to see how the weavers were getting on. Now he wanted to know if the cloth would soon be ready. It was just the same with this gentleman as with the wise man. First he looked closely at the looms on all sides. He could see nothing at all but the empty frames. "Does not the stuff appear as beautiful to you as it did to my lord the wise man?" asked the thieves of the emperor's second adviser. "I certainly am not stupid," thought the man. "It must be that I am not fit for my good job. That is very odd. However, no one shall know anything about it." And so he praised the stuff he could not see. He declared that he was happy with both colors and patterns. "Indeed, your imperial majesty," he said to his emperor when he returned, "the cloth which the weavers are preparing is extraordinarily magnificent." The whole city was talking of the splendid cloth which the emperor had ordered to be woven. Finally, the emperor himself wished to see the costly material while it was still in the loom. He took many officers to the court and the two honest men who had already admired the cloth. As soon as the weavers saw the emperor approach, they went on working faster than ever, although they still did not pass even one thread through the looms. "Is it not a work absolutely magnificent?" said the two officers of the crown already mentioned. "If your majesty will only be pleased to look at it. What a splendid design! What glorious colors!" And at the same time they pointed to the empty frames, for they imagined that everyone else could see this exquisite piece of workmanship. "How is this?" said the emperor to himself. "I can see nothing. This is indeed a terrible affair. Am I a simpleton, or am I unfit to be an emperor? That would be the worst thing that could happen. Oh, the cloth is charming," said he aloud. "I approve of it completely." He smiled most graciously and looked closely at the empty looms. No way would he say that he could not see what two of his advisers had praised so much. Everyone with the emperor now strained his or her eyes, hoping to discover something on the looms, but they could see no more than the others. Nevertheless, they all exclaimed, "Oh, how beautiful!" and advised His Majesty to have some new clothes made from this splendid material for the parade that was planned. "Magnificent, charming, excellent," was called out on all sides. Everyone was very cheerful. The emperor was pleased. He presented the weavers with the emblem of an order of knighthood. The thieves sat up the whole of the night before the day on which the parade was to take place. They had 16 lights burning so that everyone might see how anxious they were to finish the emperor's new suit. They pretended to roll the cloth off the looms. They cut the air with their scissors and sewed with needles without any thread in them. "See," cried they at last, "the emperor's new clothes are ready." The emperor, with all the grandees of his court, came to the weavers. The thieves raised their arms as if in the act of holding something up. "Here are your majesty's trousers. Here is the scarf. Here is the mantle. The whole suit is as light as a cobweb. One might fancy one has nothing at all on when dressed in it." "Yes, indeed," said all the courtiers, although not one of them could see anything of his special cloth. The emperor was undressed for a fitting, and the thieves pretended to array him in his new suit. The emperor turned round and from side to side before the looking glass. How splendid his majesty looks in his new clothes, and how well they fit! Everyone cried out. What a design! What colors! These are indeed royal robes. I am quite ready, said the emperor. He appeared to be examining his handsome suit. The lords of the bedchamber, who were to carry his majesty's train, felt about on the ground as if they were lifting up the ends of the mantle. Then they pretended to be carrying something, for they would by no means want to appear foolish or not fit for their jobs. The emperor walked under his high canopy in the midst of the procession, through the streets of his capital. All the people standing by, all those at the windows, cried out, "Oh, how beautiful are our emperor's new clothes! What a magnificent train there is to the mantle, and how gracefully the scarf hangs! No one would admit these much admired clothes could not be seen, because, in doing so, he would have been saying he was either a simpleton or unfit for his job." "But the emperor has nothing at all on," said a little child. "Listen to the voice of the child," exclaimed his father. What the child has said was whispered from one to another. "But he has nothing at all on," at last cried out all the people. The emperor was upset, for he knew that the people were right. However, he thought the procession must go on now. The lords of the bedchamber took greater pains than ever to appear holding up a train, although in reality there was no train to hold, and the emperor walked on in his underwear. So, what did you think about the story? I remember it since childhood, but I hadn't read it in a long time. I have to say it hits close to home. It feels very relevant for the times that we are living now, where we are asked not to believe our own eyes, where we are asked to believe some influencers or some figures of authority, even though our common sense tells us that it's not true. And then because of the social pressure, because of these influencers of authority figures, everyone becomes contaminated with the fact that they have to speak that way or they have to think that way, otherwise they will be excluded by society. I miss the voice of the young innocent child that tells things how they are, and then that also becomes a contagion. Um, so in this story we find several layers. First, we find the motif of like a vain sovereign. So it's a person that doesn't allot their resources properly. Of course, people in power, they have to maintain a certain status, but in the first sentences of the story we find out that he didn't have money for the soldiers and he didn't have money for the theater, but he had money for his own pleasures. In astrology, the things that we like, that would be Taurus, because Taurus is ruled by Venus, and it's the nice things we possess, and it would also be the second house. So let's say he has something in Taurus in the second house, or he has Sun in Taurus. Some important point in his astrological chart would be in Taurus. But let's say maybe he has Venus in Taurus opposite Moon, or Moon in Taurus opposite Venus, because when we have a Moon-Venus opposition, especially conjunction also, but especially opposition, the person wants to have their cake and eat it too, and they are very much at the mercy of their wants. And there is no bad sign, like Taurus is not a bad sign per se, but it could be shadowed, some complications. And even people who have exactly the same placements, they could be behaving differently because they went through life and they learned. Also, if we look at the cards, I would say that he's a king of diamonds, but the reversed king of diamonds, because he's not a generous and a charitable king that is the master of the skill, but the opposite, he is only generous with himself. He's only preoccupied with his own self well-being. So I think, yeah, it's the lower, the shadow side, the low representation or the shadow side of the king of diamonds. And then we have the two thieves. The two thieves would be like the north node, the eighth house, something eighth house related, because the eighth house could be thieves. The north node is a foreign element, so two strangers come, two people that are from a different country. We don't know where they're from, but we know they're strangers and they are thieves. So in the beginning we don't know they are thieves, we just say that they are two loomers, and then we say they are pretending to be knitting some sort of cloth, and then the author refers to them as thieves. So gradually it's revealed that they are thieves. So yes, we can think of the north node, that a north node combination with the eighth house, or we can think of in card reading, it would be like the Jack of Spades. Jack of Spades is the thief, it's someone sneaky, the spy, the thief. But at the same time, these thieves, even if what they are doing is dishonest, they have a very important role, just because they are exposing the hypocrisy of the king and of the people in the king's court. So their role is greater than being thieves. I think nowadays we would call them trolls. They were trolling the king. Maybe the king was having some sort of Neptune transit on his ascendant, because Neptune is also illusions and disillusionment, but it's not the fault of the two thieves that everyone reacted like that. They just came with a disruptive element like the north node would. The problem is with the people themselves and their values. So they shone some light on the values that the people were holding. They were shining some light on their moral standards, these two thieves. So I think they have an important role. I was thinking if I could relate them to Pluto, if the two thieves were like a Pluto transit, because Pluto is also liberating and it also burns the fake, the inauthentic self, the ego. But the thing is that the king just went on. He decided to go along. He didn't embrace any transformation, because it would have been too embarrassing for his ego to admit that he was in his underpants. He decided to move on, and the people in his entourage were also following him, so he just stuck to the line. A Neptune transit that, instead of dissipating the illusion for the king, he just kept his ego. So definitely a reverse king of diamonds was that king. But for the people who actually saw the truth, they were having like a good transit. The transit was not necessarily good, but their reaction to it was good, because they were inspired by the innocence of a child. So if I would look at him in the cards of truth, I would say the child is maybe an ace of hearts, because that's purity. All the aces have freshness and purity connotation, and especially the ace of hearts, which has to do with family and like a new beginning in the family. The ace of hearts could be a child, a new child. But I would if I think about it a little further, I would say that he is a Jack of Hearts, because the Jack of Hearts contains the energy of the Ace, 2 and 3 of Hearts. So it's not only a child that is there, like, you know, a small baby, a fresh innocent. It's also a child that does something that has an impact on people's emotions. So the Jack of Hearts has a lasting impact on people's emotions, because Jack of Hearts is a fixed card in the card system. Yes, the child would be a Jack of Hearts that brings out the truth in an innocent and honest way. And if we would look at the human design, we would think maybe that child is a little manifester. He doesn't care about other people's opinion. Maybe he's a splenic manifester. He didn't need to wait for his emotional authority. He just said what he saw, and he was confident in his voice, his throat defined, and he had a great impact on the people who started laughing and realized what was going on. Unfortunately, the king, he was not absolved, he was not saved by the truth, because he did not admit in public that it was wrong what he did. And we can still see that nowadays, when authorities make some wrong decisions, I don't ever hear them apologizing afterwards. They just go with the wrong decision because they have to show consistency. So it's consistency versus truth, unfortunately. That is not a fair trade-off, some would say, and I would also say. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have more astrological or card related cross references or human design related references, I would like to hear them in the comments. And yeah, if you enjoyed the story, maybe meditate a little on its meaning of how far do we take social pressure, and how far do we take not listening to our common sense and to what we know is true, and how far do we go with other people's fantasy of what is true. So yeah, I'm gonna leave you with that. Have a nice weekend, and I'll see you again another time. Bye.